Anno 117 Pax Romana was my first Anno game. I'm hooked. Luckily, I'm very familiar with the various genres of games that Anno seems to pull from, so seeing production chains as a core mechanic of the game didn't intimidate me too awful much. Placing a basic building costs the basic resource of timber, so first you need to place your woodcutter and sawmill to obtain said timber. This simple concept is expanded on with later game buildings. Resource and production chains are also integral to managing your population, their core needs, their optional needs, and the ability to unlock higher tiers of population with better buildings. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. The different tiers of population also fulfill different needs for various game mechanics, like the military requiring libertists to recruit from, or workplaces hiring from the plebeian workforce, and add more to your population and income as tiers get higher. Warehouses are a thing. In my short time playing, I felt like the game was making them out to be very important, and I'm looking forward to understanding their mechanics and the strat per se in full when I get to dive back into the game more deeply. At one point, I chose what to trade away based on what I had at maximum storage in my warehouses, and at another point, I noticed one of my production buildings wasn't able to produce its thing because there wasn't a warehouse within range that held its intermediate resource, or something along those lines. Anyways, my memory isn't the greatest, and those 2 days in Rome absolutely flew by, with a life, of course, being hectic since. Yeah, I actually went to Rome. Ubisoft was very generous and flew a handful of creators out so we could experience the new Anno in style. It was wild. I had a name tag and everything.
Got my name on it? That's so cool.
The next day, they brought us to an olive tree plantation in the Sabine region with the most beautiful view. We each planted a tree. I planted my little fella right next to an olive tree that was 800 years old. And we learned about how when they chose ancient Rome as the setting, there were a couple pieces of history the developers knew right away had to be in the game to align with the Roman fantasy vibe they were going for. I'll touch on another later when we get to military, but this was, of course, olive oil. Olive oil is a household need for the plebeians rather than a food need, as it was used for many things in ancient Roman times, like hygiene, medicine, and fuel for lamps. Gotta love it when video games trick you into learning, eh? The next game mechanic I want to master in Anno 117 is sort of two, but then also sort of combined with the first to be one giant thing. I've already mentioned trade, and man, as a brand new player under a huge time crunch, overwhelmed by the setting and jet lagged to all hell after arriving on a transatlantic flight literally that same morning, I was confused by the little bit of trade I tried to do during my play. Just in case it isn't clear though, this was very much a me problem. I was able to find the trade screen with my little boat, and I noticed that there's an option to have a reoccurring trade, which excites me. In this little gameplay, I just sold some excess items for money, but I feel like I can see a glimpse of how setting up some automated systems could be advantageous. Trading for goods that you don't have within range or automatically selling excess goods once you're storing a certain amount would certainly help with stabilizing the budget, which, let me tell you, I had a rough time with. I want to reiterate that my perspective is as a new Anno player, and we were only able to play a certain game mode that I'm fairly confident was not the actual tutorial, though there were helpful messages popping up to get the player started, which I was thankful for. I also want to be clear, I'm talking about how I don't yet fully grasp these concepts from a place of excitement. I'm stoked to play more and learn more. I feel like this little taste of the game showed me just how much it is a big yes for me. Beautiful aesthetics, we'll get to those soon, combined with all the numbers and choices that make the happy brain juices. Good stuff. Oh, and hey, you can purchase people. But yes, early game income was difficult to come by. I eventually figured out that having a population to provide income via taxes was something to focus on, but I'm pretty sure I clued into this well after I had already put down too many buildings trying to provide everyone a utopia of full needs and wants, which was costing a fortune. I did at one point think there may not be any consequence to the failing economy beyond number red bad, so I started spam building, but at one point I got a message that basically said, hey, you suck at this, suck a little less or face the consequences. So I'm fairly confident that there's a fail condition at a certain point. I'm sure I'll find it the next time I play. Anyways, it was great to have a challenge with the economy, and my first impression is that it'll be approachable enough even for new players. When I started to focus on actually balancing the budget, I did see improvement, but there's definitely some min-maxing that's doable there for the more hardcore player base or even challenge runs. Looking forward to starting a new game with what I learned from this one to see if I've improved. Speaking of new playthroughs, we were restricted to playing as the Latium province, but there is also the more Celtic-coded province of Albion. Fair warning, pretty sure every time I play this game, I'm going to be focusing on them. They look so cool. I have no idea how the two peoples will interconnect, if at all, but I remember reading or being told or something that you can choose to influence the Albion people and steer them more towards Roman traditions or leave them to continue and develop their own customs. It sounds rad, and I'm so looking forward to learning more about them. The only thing I do have that I can show on them is religion. I was able to place and build a sanctuary, which gives a buff to happiness and belief within its area of effect. You can also choose a patron to worship at that sanctuary, which will start you earning devotion towards that patron, unlocking certain benefits for each patron. I did try to capture a bit of each patron, which I'm showing on screen right now, and I'm pretty sure these last few are relevant to the Albion province. I mean, look at this dude. And he increases the production of beavers? I'm in. This bar at the bottom fills up as you generate more devotion, and I'm pretty sure each of these diamond points relate to unlocking a higher amount of the benefit on the left. When you change your patron, it says it will reset your devotion, presumably removing those benefits too. What I don't know much about yet is the local religion versus a global religion. You would assume that whichever patron has the most devotion generated towards them would become your global, but then are there any tolerance mechanics, any benefits to having a diverse set of beliefs, or the opposite? I did see unlock requirements for these patrons, which editor Toadie will pause on. The requirements listed here feel very similar to the tech tree, or research tree, or as named in-game, the discovery tree. Research unlocks after placing the grammaticus, which generates knowledge. The more knowledge you're generating, the faster you unlock different techs. Yes, you can queue research. I don't have too much to say here. Most of us are probably familiar with research tree. The paths through the tree are well represented visually, and you can see there are different paths to many of the techs. I appreciate how non-linear it is. I did hover over at least most of these nodes, hoping to make editor Toadie pause a bit on each one. The gray circles were unknown research, but the bigger nodes, inspirations, showed at least their name and unlock requirements. I can see myself referring to these unlock requirements like the religion ones when I'm stuck for what to do or work on next in the game. Pick one and work towards it. Research was sorted into 3 main branches: economic, civic, and military, which brings me to the next game mechanic I want to master in Anno 117 Pax Romana: diplomacy and combat. During my short time playing, I met 3 other governors: Tarragon, Lycia Ma, and Gnaeus Firmius Calidus. I think there's quite a bit to diplomacy that I haven't seen yet. You get a greeting event when you meet someone for the first time, where you choose 2 greetings with positive or negative effects to your relationship that decay over time. These effects are shown as reasons when you look at actions you want to take with that governor, and you can see more reasons in this tooltip. Governors also have different backstories and traits, as well as a difficulty rating. I'm curious how the difficulty rating comes into effect. Like, can I choose to spawn a world with only certain difficulties of other governors, or simply choose to ignore the more difficult ones? Is it relevant to combat at all? Yes, combat is back. This is another part of Roman history that the devs said was a must-have when they were considering Rome as their focus for this game. I didn't get far enough into the game to actually see any combat, nor did I build any boats, but I was able to place a barracks and see a bit of the requirements for land combat units. So we can see the Slinger, Auxilia, and Murmillo Gladiator have different stats, costs, and classifications like armor piercing, anti-cavalry, and strong charge, respectively. These remind me of familiar combat strengths and weaknesses from other games, where you aim to have different unit types face off against the type they're strong against from the opposing army. We can also see military units require Libertas population as a part of their maintenance cost, giving us a reason to keep some lower tier population and finding that balance. The devs did let us know that despite land combat returning in Anno 117, it's not something that players will be required to put a heavy focus on if we don't want to. Diplomacy absolutely has its place, and they assured us that we should be able to find peaceful solutions to disputes if we preferred that avenue. Tarragon here did send me a gift of straight up cash, which was lovely. Again, my memory is a bit fuzzy, but I believe this was after I did a quest for him, loading something onto my cargo boat and bringing it to his lighthouse or something like that. I did try a couple different things that you could call quests or narrative events, and they definitely added to the storytelling nature of the game, which is something I'm not used to in a city builder, but do appreciate in other games I've seen them in. Every now and then you'd get a pop-up that you can click on to bring you to a full screen narrative event. It gives you a short story and you can choose how to respond to the situation. I, of course, chose to be a twat to the lowly libertist that hailed me just 11 minutes into my gameplay, which caused me minus 50 happiness for an hour across my city, but saved me from having to pay him 100 of my precious money, and I still got his timber. I chose the bad guy option in a different event as well, hoping to see if there were any consequences that popped up later on for being unkind, but I either didn't see any or didn't get far enough into gameplay. The last narrative event I had let me flip a coin to decide which of the two twins I would hire, giving me different buffs for each of them. The correct choice for my financially destitute city at the time was definitely Gaius, who would increase my passive income by 10%, but of course I had to choose Brutus because if I didn't put someone in my game who shares a name with this beautiful dog of mine, I would be a monster. Later, I had something come up that seemed separate from these narrative events, presented as a quest offer. I had to pick up this lil fella in a boat and bring him to another location on the map where he got too drunk at the celebratory dinner and was physically sick on someone. So I took the opportunity to make a speech, of course, taking credit for organizing the dinner, but then turned things around by saying my kindness was nothing next to the people I delivered the dude to. This little chain of choices was neat, as I didn't know which option was the better one, if there was a better one, or how it would all turn out. Seems like I did something right though, because it resulted in me being given this philanthropic patron person who I believe operates similar to those villa specialists we could have purchased in trade earlier. Overall, the different styles of quests and objectives feel pretty unique to Anno when I think about the larger picture of city builder, colony, resource management combo games, and maybe that's obvious to folks who have played previous Anno titles, but it was refreshing to me as a newcomer. I think they break up the min-max numbers gameplay well, and appreciate that so far at least I was able to choose when to give them attention. Something I think I need to give a fair chunk more attention to if I want to be able to call myself an Anno player is hotkeys and shortcuts and all that good stuff. I'm curious how previous Anno games played. With 1.17, it felt like there were a few options for getting to actions more quickly. I didn't realize until late that you can move buildings from the main menu bar into this hotbar on the left of the bottom row. Makes sense to put common things like roads, housing, maybe warehouses there. You can also right-click on the ground to get a radial menu of some common actions, and blueprinting exists for planning, which I don't think I realized until reviewing the footage now. Road building surprised me. You can place buildings without requiring the road to be there first, which is already great. Then use the road tool, and if I remember correctly, just click on the building and the road automatically builds around it, or around the grouping of buildings like I'm showing here. You can see the road doesn't get to build on the left just because of the impassable terrain. But yeah, handy to be able to click once and have the road surround the building like this, and it makes me curious what other shortcuts I may have missed. Tangibly related, I promise, but I haven't mentioned yet that I actually got to sit in a room with two of the Anno developers and ask them about the game interview style. Cool opportunity, right? Well, of course, the audio didn't record, so looks neat at least, but really it's not much of a loss. I've already included some of their answers, like how they are aiming for combat to not be necessary if players don't want it. The other two relevant answers I can share fit here. I think I asked about how well they feel Anno 1.17 might be for a newcomer to this series, or maybe even the genre, and what skill level they're targeting. Their response was probably what you'd expect. They hope the skill barrier to entry is low enough to entice new players while having enough depth of mechanics for veteran players to explore and finesse with for many an hour to come. As far as I could tell with my short time playing, that goal absolutely holds up. I also asked about the more straightforward side of accessibility, as I had seen in the options menus some accessibility options already, as well as a full list of key rebinds. The devs told me that they consider accessibility all throughout the development process, rather than just slapping a few options on once the game is already complete. They told me what I had seen in the menu so far wasn't the finalized version either. So I'm very hopeful that gamers who use alternative mice or need audio or visual options will be able to play this game as well. When I'm able to take more time in the menus and test settings out, I'll be looking at that more in depth for sure. You know what I want to look at more in depth? This game, man. It's gorgeous. The penultimate thing I can't wait to master in Anno 117 is just making shit pretty. I'm glad I took the time to fly around the map and zoom in a little so I can show you stuff like this. I think I've seen a bit of Anno 1800 and it was lovely too, but to get to actually sit in front of a screen proper and get my eyes on this was a real treat. Little animations too. Check out these dudes putting out the fire. You're able to change the time of day at will, and it's worth doing for obvious reasons on screen. There's also plenty to keep in mind while building that I can see making for some meticulous city building. The housing for the population tiers changes visually as you level them up, and crop fields are placed in such a way that you can squeeze them into little crannies that you might create. There's also a purely decorative menu, which I tried to make use of while playing, but I am hoping that there are more options in it at release, or maybe I hadn't just unlocked them yet. There's also the discussion to be had about diagonal roads. I understand that these are a noteworthy point. Well, they exist and felt very natural to place buildings on. The discussion point with them, I guess, is about how building on and off the diagonal may look organic and pleasing, but often would be the less efficient choice. Bringing me to my final talking point. City design, specifically mastering the functional layout. Anno 117 Pax Romana is one of those city builder games that you can turn into a puzzle if you choose to approach it that way, trying to find the most optimal layout for each building placement. Buildings have buffs and debuffs that they apply in an area of effect around them, like the kiln reducing health and fire safety by 3 each, which you can combat with Medici and Vigiles respectively, but you have to be able to afford them in your budget. Crops take up a good chunk of land, and you want to leave forest around your woodcutters. You also want to have warehouses placed optimally to serve various production buildings, and want to make sure you have the different populations' needs satisfied in the areas that you've got them living. It can be a lot to think about as you're planning or placing. I do appreciate that as you're placing a building that has a positive or negative effect around it, the game tells you plainly how many buildings your current placement will affect, and shows what I'm going to call an efficiency percentage on production buildings. It feels like Anno is transparent with its information, so now it's just up to us to use that information to make disastrous decisions with. Thanks for listening to me ramble at you about Anno 117 Pax Romana as a new player. I'd really appreciate your top Anno tips in the comments to give me a kickstart when I get to dive into this game proper, and while you're down there, subscribe if you would like to see said gameplay. And hey, did you guys know the Colosseum is real?